Hello, and welcome to this episode of the EMS Spotlight. I'm Eric with EMS Now. EMS Spotlight's a platform where we speak to EMS executives about their company and the industry in which they operate. And today it's my pleasure to speak again with Patrick Freytag. He's the CEO of Creation Technologies. Creation was ranked number 45 on our recent list of EMS and top 100 EMS and ODMs in 2025. Great company with a great history. I think still 13 sites across 4 countries globally. Patrick, you and I had an opportunity to speak almost a year ago, and you'd been in the CEO role for, I think, about 100 days at that point.
That's right, Eric. It's good to see you again, and thank you certainly for having me on again. And we're thrilled to be included in that top 100 list. It's certainly in a global market with so many different names in it. We're certainly excited to kind of be included in that initial list. You're absolutely right. 12 months ago when we spoke, I think was in that March, April timeframe, we had just gone through a transition here at Creation at the CEO role, had been in for right around 100 days, had kind of stepped into some excitement on the global trade environment, but really just thrilled kind of a year later with the work that we've done and completed with our customers. And really the value that we continue to drive in our markets and the partnerships that we continue to strengthen among the 125 customers that we serve across those 13 business units in 4 countries.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that because I think you've led Creation Tech through a kind of very significant transformation here in your term. So for viewers who may not know Creation very well, how would you describe Creation today, kind of, and the specific problems that you're helping to solve for more the mid-volume OEMs in the higher regulated markets that you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, again, the EMS market, broadly speaking, is enormous, right? And serving thousands of OEMs on a global basis and doing all kinds of different things in different levels of end markets. Where Creation has carved a strategic niche is really in the high complexity, low to mid volume markets, serving medical technology, aerospace and defense, and industrial technology customers. That focus area, we find that we can drive really strong partnership with those customers, and we're bringing value to them in areas of engineering and supply chain and program management, and ultimately in manufacturing. That's where we continue to find opportunities, where we continue to distinguish ourselves. And very often what we're seeing is that customers that we're attracted to that really fit that profile, they're generally underserved. They kind of are in an area where the large global tier one public companies, if you will, struggle with the level of complexity and the volumes that they're looking for their products, while simultaneously the more regionally focused single site type players struggle with that global scale and the global sophistication that Creation has. And so we have this opportunity in a niche to serve those customers, serve them in a world-class way, and drive a tremendous amount of organic opportunity. We estimate that niche. Niche is an interesting word. It kind of has a connotation of, is that small? We estimate that's probably around $20 billion of opportunity out of North America alone. We're coming off a record year where we were just over $1 billion of revenue. So even at those levels, we have a whopping 5%, which is impressive. We think we're probably one of the largest pure play specialty providers in the world, but we have a huge opportunity to continue to serve our customers well and continue to drive new customer acquisition in that market in North America.
Yeah, and that's a good point I wanted to follow up with. So across those markets you mentioned, the med tech, the industrial tech, and the aero defense, OEMs are certainly navigating uncertainty from a geopolitical risk and regulatory pressure. So what demand signals are you seeing over the next, say, 12 to 24 months, and how are those dynamics shaping how customers choose their EMS partners?
Yeah, look, I think the last 2 years, if I could, narrow it to a single word, the idea of resiliency in your supply chain is just kind of the primary focus area that I continue to hear from our customers. And whether that's in specific to the supply chain or resiliency when we're tackling sophisticated engineering challenges or program challenges, and how do all those come together to really mitigate risks within the forward look, whether it's in the supply chain side or even in a demand environment that continues to be impacted, as you said, by geopolitical influences. What we are seeing as we're coming out of 2025, And there's some certainty around trade environment insofar as some challenges have fallen away. There's new challenges that continue to come every day. But the growing theme in the market that we're experiencing and that's impacting is really a pull in of the supply chain gravitating towards AI demand of data centers and the components that are powering that. And things that were previously simple and easy to find, whether at the board level or at simple component and heat sink levels, are now in scarce supply. And that's starting to reverberate across all markets and really driving challenges in terms of lead times extending and prices going up, and really creating an opportunity for us to help our customers navigate those challenges. But what we're seeing then at the end of the day from a demand signal is that as we're informing customers with data analytics on the impact of the supply chain, we're getting better traction and visibility on a 9, 12, and 15-month horizon as customers are expecting lead times to continue to expand and pricing pressures to continue to increase. I would say that suck in from the AI phenomenon is big. Complexifying that, complicating that, adding to that is global conflict and uncertainty of where the general economic outlook goes given that global conflict. So it's not a quiet period. I think the EMS market tends to have equilibrium for around 60 seconds every 36 months. And we're well past that. We're back into a mode of how can we step in and really drive value and surety of supply for our customers.
Yeah. As you indicated, there's the tiering of the industry in there. And what we hear often from kind of OEMs is that they feel stuck in the middle, right? That they're too complex and low cost EMS providers and too small for the largest players right out there. And that seems to be a niche that you guys serve well. So how do you differentiate yourself with those customers?
Yeah, it really comes down to a couple of things. I'll start on the talent side. And really, from a people perspective, having a talented organization in key functional areas, specifically around supply chain engineering and program management, kind of the tip of the spear, if you will, of that interaction with our OEM, of solving the problem and the question of how do I get the customer's product to market in an efficient way, in a commercial way that allows us to manufacture and meet their demand signal, but allows us to do it in a way that we're not going to have hiccups in full manufacturability and in commercialization. We have a process of MPI called Launch with Excellence into Advanced Production, our LEAP process. That complements talent is strong process, and our ability to work with our customers who want to go fast. Speed is a factor, but want to do it in a way that we're minimizing hiccups once we get to that commercial manufacturing side. It's that level of sophistication that really differentiates creation from a people perspective, and for an example, from a process perspective as well. And then I think the third part of it is just continued investment in our footprint. As you think about, we have 13 business lines across 12 locations in 4 countries. We've made numerous investments in that platform over the last 3 years in technology, both in automation and robotics, as well as just in kind of what I would categorize as latest generation tools and equipment for SMT and for PCBA manufacturing, coding elements, testing elements, et cetera. So it's really a combination people, process, and continued investment that really is differentiating us. We made an investment, one I want to highlight on the people side, to deploy strategic supply chain managers across our organization that are really focused on delivering an innovative solution to our customer. Don't read innovative solution as just a cost opportunity, because that's not where we're competing. It's really around delivering a resilient solution to customers that's able to be resilient and to mitigate the risk of global tariff environment, of disruption in supply chain because of scarcity or because of conflict. That's the resiliency that I was talking about earlier and where our customers are focused. And that was one of our investments in both people as well as process on the supply chain side to ensure that we're bringing that into the customer conversation and bringing that value and that insight into their room as they're thinking about how they're manufacturing and meeting their customer demands.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to get into a little bit something you just mentioned, the whole NPI piece. That's something I've been looking at more lately, and in talking to some OEMs, it's also, I think, an area where they struggle a lot with their EMS providers because it's not always the EMS does NPI and production. Sometimes it's the
Yeah,
OEM or what a smaller shop may do the NPI and it launches. It could launch to another EMS. It could launch back into the
yeah.
OEM's internal. So there's a lot of variation within that, how that goes. And so being able to provide a very good solution is very valuable in this environment, I would think.
It is, and I think that we've created we've really driven a strategy that focuses on a couple of different areas of it. In any one of those 13 business units, we're doing NPI, and that NPI is it's important for us that the customer experience to NPI is consistent across all business units, and that was the genesis of the LEAP initiative when we came up with that a couple of years ago. And again, customers want to go fast, but if you go fast, you often trip. And trips, if you're out on the shop floor and you're in commercial manufacturing, are expensive, they're challenging, and ultimately they cause disruption. And so, really, intentionality around a stage gate process early on that allows us to scale through and be confident that when we do launch out on the shop floor and are meeting that demand signal from our customer, we're not going to be constantly chasing our tail, if you will, with engineering challenges or manufacturing challenges or even test challenges. And that's what the LEAP process really focuses on. It does things, quite frankly, fundamental to looking at board layout, looking at alternatives on the board. Are there challenges in the supply chain right now in this stage before we even get to commercial production? Delivering those insights at that early stage minimizes challenges later. And so I think that's resonated quite well. The other piece I'd want to highlight is that, if you go to any EMS provider's website, a lot of companies talk about prototyping, and everybody does prototyping. We have a facility in Denver, Colorado, that does commercial manufacturing, but also has a specialty in short run prototyping for our customers, where we can buy direct off of websites in some situations or through distribution channels in quantities of 5, 10, 20, run a discrete quantity for our customer, and then provide feedback on opportunities at the board level or even at the assembly level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has resonated tremendously well, particularly with some of our med tech customers that have new, exciting tech for their patient customers that they want to get to market very quickly, but we want to do that in a way that we're not causing disruption later on.
Mm-hmm.
Really grasping and gravitating towards that prototyping opportunity. We've seen a lot of traction there and a lot of terrific feedback from our customers that are utilizing that. And as you highlighted, there are a lot of companies that do this. The difference with Creation is that we can do that for our customers in Denver, and then we can provide them with that commercial manufacturing option. And that's really where we target. We typically are not going to do that just as a one-off, and then that production is going to go someplace else. It's really part of that full suite of services that takes us from prototyping to NPI to full production.
Right. No, I appreciate your comments because that is something I'm hearing more about. And I think and I'm also reading online some things for OEMs. That's a lot of it comes back to that challenge. So
Mhm.
let me move on here. The supply chain resilience and regionalization seem to be top priorities for OEMs today. So how has Creation designed its footprint to support onshoring and reshoring while also maintaining scale and flexibility and frankly, cost discipline?
Yeah, look, I think that our platform has come together really with certainly a focus in North America and then a world-class option in China. And we continue to invest in those areas in China. And we have a facility in Mexico that we've done a tremendous amount to invest in and expand. That facility, when it came to us about 5 years ago, was about 35,000 square feet. It's 205,000 square feet today. We built a new one within 12 months of acquiring that business 5 years ago. And my point being is that our strategy is that we continue to have strength with our North American-based customers. That's really who we focus on, and our ability to launch them in the United States or in Canada. That's a focus area. If those products have opportunity or challenge on cost, which can happen as they mature, we then combine that strong US-Canada footprint with two world-class facilities and low-cost option, whether in Mexico or in China, and bring those opportunities to bear for our customers. What we are seeing, certainly it's hard to draw a substantive conclusion from activity in 2025 just because of so much volatility in the tariff environment. But what is emerging is two things. Mexico continues to be a strong option for our North American customers who are coming back into the United States. And as we're navigating the complexities of USMCA, there's still a great option there. Canada is a great option as well for those customers. A ton of momentum in the last 6 months into China, with strategies looking at China for China, China for parts of Europe. And I think our customers and many OEMs are starting to re-examine cost structures in Southeast Asia, as those were, highly attractive 5 years ago. There's been a lot of activity there. Those cost structures are starting to rise, and so I think that for us, it's maintaining that global flexibility because each one of our customers have different needs, as you pointed out, and we're dealing with global customers. They may have North American decision makers, but their products are going across the globe, and so they require that flexibility and that competitiveness to use something in Asia or use something in Mexico.
Yeah, no, very good. And I also think about for the regulated and the kind of the high reliability products that you guys specialize on, technology adoption has to enhance quality and not really introduce risk, right? So how is
Yeah.
creation then using automation, data, digital tools, all the
Yep.
whiz bang stuff that's out there now, and
Yeah.
to
No,
support
it's a great question, and look, I think that our priority when we think about technology is really we're not trying to solve a problem with technology. That's a dangerous way to do things. Are we trying to be more efficient with a strong process that's in place today? Certainly, there are technological elements to that are exciting and that we're pursuing. There's an attractiveness on automation and technology, really around consistency of delivery and high quality delivery. If you think about kind of repeatable, if you're thinking just simply about repeatable motions that you have a human
Yeah.
doing versus having a robot doing, predictability and consistency across the robot. So we've been deliberate, and I would say a bit of a crawl, walk, run strategy to tech, particularly on the automation, robotics, and to a lesser extent on the AI side. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But where we focus is really on optimizing the employee experience on the shop floor. And what I mean by that is minimizing repetitive, non-value added steps. If you're on a single piece flow line, as that piece is flowing through, is an operator picking it up and taking it to the next station? Or are you using simple automation and preform structures to have slide lines on that line and just create an efficiency so your operators are at that workstation without interruption, without moving? And so there are simple elements of automation that we're employing across our entire network and yielding terrific results, really as part of our overall culture of productivity. On the robotics side, again, moving materials around the facility using AGVs to do that, huge opportunity. These are simple things. These are technologies that have been around for a long time, but we continue to kind of roll those out across the platform as opportunities, again, to minimize kind of non-value added movement that pulls our operator away from their primary job, if you will. On the AI side, a lot in data analytics and a lot in the early go for creation focused on really scenario planning within the supply chain. We utilize a platform ubiquitously across creation on material resource planning, and using AI within that platform to look at vulnerabilities in the supply chain, do bill of material analytics with our customers. It's not replacing the resource that's there or the talent that's there, but it's allowing that individual to be that much more efficient in their role and to be taking on more volume doing that type of analytic and service delivery for customers. So it's certainly a force multiplier at the moment for us. And as I said, it's a bit of a crawl, walk, run, but I would say in the early go, as we're maturing both on the automation as well as on the AI side, we're seeing some early benefits from it.
It's interesting because with the AI specifically, and I think what we're seeing is that the more value it does, the quicker you're able to move, right? That rate, that's all of a sudden the baseline, right? Wherever that is. And
That's
the,
right.
the
Yeah.
speed keeps increasing and you can't just back off it anymore. You have to keep it at that pace or improve.
Or improve. That's right. That's absolutely right. And I think that I'm expecting that we'll continue to see there are opportunities everywhere for it, certainly. And I think that we'll continue to be very deliberate in terms of how we utilize and where we see a clear advantage, not only for our people, but certainly for our customers.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, as I talk to OEMs, and I've done a few other executive interviews this week with a couple, and they all talk about the EMS partner is an extension of the OEM's operations, right?
Hmm.
Being really hand in glove with them. So,
Yeah.
what operational priorities matter most to creation right now, and how do those priorities translate into better outcomes for customers in terms of quality, continuity, and responsiveness?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question, and I get it from my team a lot as well. But where we win and where we have just a lasting partnership with our customers is that my team is in that room and in out on the shop floor with our customers, solving engineering challenges, solving supply chain challenges, really filling a gap, whether it's in process or technology or in people that the customer doesn't have. We have the real luxury of partnering with some of the most exciting product companies on the face of the earth in the three segments where we operate, and it certainly is a privilege. However, they're focused on product development and they're focused on their technology. They have an opportunity and sometimes a gap in how it comes to life and how they manage their supply chain, and where our teams are sitting with them kind of locked arm in arm and solving those challenges. That's where we're just getting the most phenomenal traction with those customers and the largest opportunities. And as a result, I've mentioned those three functions, I think now three times, around engineering, supply chain, and program management. We continue to invest operationally and in the talent in those groups so that their playbook of how to best deliver value for customers, the process and tools that they have at their fingertips to be innovative and creative for our customers, those areas continue to make a huge difference and really lead the way for the balance of our organization. But I can't say enough about our teams in those three functions, from the leadership all the way down through, because they're the ones that are really driving those interactions on a daily basis, and continue to drive the strong result in our financials and in our customer satisfaction.
Let me dive into that a little bit on the talent side, because engineering depth is
Mhm.
really oftentimes what separates a transactional EMS provider from really a strategic partner. So how is creation, you've touched on this a little bit, but how are you investing in the talent organization capability support, from the complex NPIs like we talked to, the regulated industries and long product life cycles?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a combination of a few different things. But on the engineering front specifically, we've done a lot on the front end with our people, just from a talent management perspective, to ensure that when we're recruiting, we're making it very transparent to the individual on how you can build a career as a first year engineer all the way through an engineering leadership position within creation. It's a foundational thing, but it's very important to be able to show that to someone when they're coming in, where that opportunity lays and what customers they're working with, and how they can not only drive a successful career for themselves, but be a part of working with these exciting OEMs that we have as I said, we have the privilege of working with. We've done a lot I want to highlight one thing, a lot on the test development side, and the test engineering side has been a huge focus for our OEMs over the last 12 to 24 months. And we've responded by that. And I would say even we're proactive with it in test development services, where we're really working with the customer on building that functional test bench, helping them on the software of it, the parameters of it, and providing that as a service that's available in every one of our locations, really to drive further engagement and really that full life cycle. Again, for us, it's if we're hitting it
Yeah.
out of the park on the MPI side, great, but like that back end is just as important. And so for in terms of just continued investment there and drive with our customers, that's been an area that we've been really excited about over the last several quarters.
Uh, Another area I wanted to ask you about, where customers are increasingly evaluating EMS partners, not just on cost and quality, but also on sustainability and governance, right? The whole ESG piece. So how does Creation's ESG approach align with customer expectations? I think
Yeah,
you're coming
go
out with
ahead.
your report this year too, right?
Yeah, so we'll be able to publish for the first time. We'll be publishing a full report later this year, kind of on the different initiatives that we have on it, and certainly for customers and for our ownership alike, it's become a heavy focus. I would say from a governance perspective, the demands of our end markets, certainly in industrial technology, but specifically in regulated medical and aerospace and defense markets, focused on resiliency and cybersecurity, focused on general control environments, really feel like we've been leading the pack on that from our competition perspective. We received cybersecurity maturity model certification of level 2 this past 12 months, kind of puts us out in front, certainly in a critical area for our continued development and advancement on the aerospace and defense side of the world. And so very proud of that. That's a kind of a robust set of parameters that are measured in terms of the overall resiliency of our internal controls and security platform that gives us a competitive leg with our aerospace and defense customers as those parameters continue to advance. On the social aspects of it, we've done a lot with creation in the community. We stood up a community-focused program called Creation Cares in the last 24 months that's really around how the company is interacting in those 12 communities where we have locations. We have 3,200 employees that work for Creation Technologies. They have families, they have children, they have brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers that are in those communities. And it's really important to me that we look beyond just the four walls of each one of our facilities and are making that impact and that investment and that contribution with time and resources in those communities. And so those are a couple of the elements of it. The environmental piece of it, we're in a fortunate space. We don't do a lot of caustic work by any stretch of the imagination. But we continue to look at areas of renewable energy and overall consumption, and those will all be kind of enumerated in that report that comes out later this year. So, look, it's been a focus for us in a way that's very intentional. It's quite meaningful for our employees.
Yeah.
It's drove satisfaction with customers, certainly, that we are focused on it. But I'm equally proud of the engagement that it drives with our employees around initiatives that are adding value to their life outside of the company.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And every time I hear companies talk about ESG, I think about they're re-elevating kind of the stakeholders over just the shareholders, not to minimize the shareholders.
No, not at all. And
No,
you can do both without minimizing either one at the end of the
exactly.
day. So
Right. Exactly right. So talking about customers though, so when OEMs come to Creation Tech, especially those transitioning from, say, proto to volume to managing mature products, what challenges are they most concerned about, and how do you help them?
yeah, I think when they come through, I think it's primarily around resiliency in that supply chain and ramp velocity, and then after that, can you meet my demand needs, and can you keep up with us, essentially? And I think that's an area that I feel, if that's the challenge, I feel very good, just because that's an area that I feel like we're just in a world-class position, given the resources that we have in those particular areas. I think that we get a lot of traction and a lot of referral with customers from our existing customers and from their end customers. Kind of the highest level of flattery where we're getting new logos directed to us by elements of tier one primes in the DoD space, or phenomenal OEMs in the med tech space. They're saying, "Hey, have you ever talked to anyone at Creation Technologies about this?" And so I think that for us, getting those referrals in and then managing those relationships with the focus on how are we building resiliency in that supply chain in ramp cycles that are extending because of the nature of the business that we're in, but you have a customer who wants to go fast. And they want to do that because their market is there. They have the same demands from their shareholders and their customers in terms of how they manage their business. And so being able to form that partnership and go on that journey with them, that's where we continue to just get a tremendous amount of traction.
Yeah. You know, I think about OEMs, and many are looking to really simplify their supply base, right? And you
Yep.
referenced this earlier across the full product life cycle so that it's not this hodgepodge of different
Yep.
companies that you're putting together for the solution. So, how does Creation's approach to design support, advanced testing that you've been talking about, aftermarket services help customers reduce complexity while extending product longevity?
So I think yeah, it's a great question, and certainly is you hit the nail on the head thematically of what so many OEMs I think discovered as they emerged from challenges on COVID and challenges through supply chain in the kind of the 22, 23 timeline. I think a lot of OEMs re-examined the fact that they were dealing with, many and too many to count in some circumstances, EMS partners. They didn't have a lot of purchasing leverage with them. They had challenges around consistency of quality or delivery or overall production. And so it gave the market an opportunity to step back and say, okay, flight to quality, who can we partner with in total lifecycle management, as you highlighted, and who can we get consistent experience with over that life cycle and in any site.
Mhm.
And I think for Creation, we have 13 business units, 12 locations. It's one experience. And that's what differentiates us from others that have platforms. Insofar as the customer experience, the systems that support that, the talent and process that support that is the same regardless of what business unit you've decided to put your business in. And I think that it's that level of consistency that differentiates us and allows us to sit in a room with a new customer or with an existing customer and continue to gain new business because they see that level of consistency and it leads to then predictability in their product around quality, around delivery, around service level, and gives them the confidence to keep coming back with more share of wallet opportunities or the confidence to put their product with us to begin with.
Yeah. Listen, you've been very generous with your time. So let me just get through a last few questions and let you
Absolutely.
get back to what I'm sure is a very busy day for you out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as customers reassess where and how their products are built, how is Creation prioritizing investments in, say, capacity, technology, and acquisitions to stay aligned with their OEM's needs over the long haul?
Yeah, and I think I'm very happy with our platform and our footprint today,
Mhm.
which doesn't mean that there are not opportunities. But I do think that given our focus areas and given the extensive platform in North America with the complement of a world-class team and site in China, we continue to be partnered well and positioned well with both our existing customers as well as with new customers.
Mhm.
We continue to make investments in each one of those facilities. And we do that in a manner that if we've got new requirements for a new customer, we are ready and willing to do that. If we've got new technology that a customer is looking for, or we think can add value, we're going down that path as well. I think as we continue to examine our footprint and where we are, particularly in the United States, we've got a phenomenal footprint through the central United States and in the Northwest and in the Northeast. The Southeast, if there was something there, could be interesting for us in the long term. But really pleased with the footprint as it is, and certainly the footprint that we have in Canada is phenomenal. And I think it's ready to meet it. And again, it combines this local feel and partnership with a global breadth of if you need low cost, if that's a priority, we have that to offer, again, with a consistent experience, whether you're in Mexico or with our team in China.
Yeah. So looking ahead, we're at the start of Q2 here this week, right? So
Mhm.
we got Q1 behind us. As we're looking ahead to 2026, how do you expect Creation's role with your customers to evolve?
I just, I think that we pride ourselves, and I pride our organization, and then I'm proud of the fact that we're not a transactional group.
Mhm.
The nature of our relationship is not transactional with our customers. It really is partnership driven. I was with an OEM in the medical space last week and was at their facility and was there for almost 5 hours with them in a room with my team and their team, going through opportunities in the second half of the year, thinking through resiliency in their pipeline and what we can do for that. We had a strategic supply chain manager with us that was walking through different strategies. and different opportunities, some on the cost side, but more focused on risk and focused on mitigating that risk and focused on ensuring that we're not going to have interruptions in their specific supply chain in the near term. And so I think that, my expectation is that the second half of our year, the opportunities will be categorized in that way. It'll be areas where we're continuing to have conversations around impact to availability, impact to lead times, and what we're doing right now and are doing now to anticipate and get in front of that, whether it's in better ordering visibility or driving more advanced purchasing strategies with our customers, kind of all on the table right now. Ultimately, what it comes back to, though, is what I said at the beginning of the question, which is partnership and not transaction, because it's that level of partnership of sitting with a customer, bringing that insight, and working with them on, we've got concerns, not in the next 90 days, but certainly in the next 3, 6, 9 months. How do we get beyond that, and how do we work on that together? And that's really where the conversation is now shifting and focusing. And I think our teams are just doing a phenomenal job responding to that with our customers.
Excellent, excellent. So going out 3 years from now, what would you like to have customers say the creation does exceptionally well?
Yeah, it's partnership and engagement. I think as I measure success basically in the feedback of my stakeholders, and my stakeholders are the 3,000 people who work here and the 125 customers. And if I've got an engaged workforce and a highly satisfied customer set, that's going to lead to a financial result that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be happy with, but I think is going to really be a reflection of our strategy continuing, and just continuing to drive that entrenched partnership with each one of our customers. Consistency is what I look for in our customer relationship: predictability and trust. And at the end of the day, if we have those three things with our customers, it just creates opportunities organically with them.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Patrick, I've taken a lot of your time and you've shared a lot
It
of
flew
great
by,
insight.
Eric. It
It did.
absolutely
This was
flew.
very
So
good. This was very good. I appreciate your insights and the comments that you're making here. And, my hope is only that the next time I call, you're willing to pick up the phone and come on again. So,
Oh, absolutely. No, this is a pleasure. I like doing this, and certainly appreciating you hosting. And I love talking about our business. Just terribly proud of it, and privileged to be in the seat that I'm in. And so it's easy to sit down for 45 minutes and talk about it anytime.
very good. Well, Patrick, continued success. Look forward to connecting again in the future.
Terrific, Eric. You take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Bye bye.
Bye now.